Rick and Morty vs. D&D, the Meeseeks adventure. It starts out with a medieval guy and alien girl running through the woods wanting to hide. They both have weird names, Bloodjet and Crinius. He says they gave the blood swords the slip and she high-fives him, saying thieves for life. Then they see a Meeseeks box. It'd be nice if we knew why it's there. Somehow she can't detect any sorcery, and he summons a Mr. Meeseeks. Bloodjet gets scared and tells him to stop looking at him, and he agrees and disappears. Bloodjet sounds like it'd be the girl's name. This just makes it harder to memorize their names. The girl Crinius asks a new Meeseeks to give a dagger to her. Naturally, she assumes it's basically a genie lamp. This is gonna be interesting. I guess they're gonna use them to try to take over the world. She's smart enough to take advantage of it. She tells this Meeseeks to carry a sack of loot back to town. It happens, and she assumes that if the person who made the box wants it back, they'll be able to defeat him with magic and poison blades. Inevitably, they wonder if the Meeseeks have any limits and decide to test them. Uh-oh. We see one dance in the streets while Blodge steals. We see one run ahead, activating arrow traps so that his masters can walk ahead. We see one run at people with a lance while she gets gold from a chest. You'd think they'd be able to retire at this point. But then they'd see life is too boring. I wish they explained that. It's because they could have easily avoided this entire plot if they just retired after getting enough gold. The Meeseeks looks tired as the two of them sleep, and then we see him get grabbed by a squid tentacle. On day 37, one carries a bunch of treasure chests up a hill with her on top of it. I never knew they had super strength. I guess they're infused with magic. One of them says their roaming fire is ready and says bye for now, for some reason. When he dies, when he completes a task, he doesn't just go back to the box. She promptly makes me wonder why they aren't already rich as royals. Sure is lucky that neither of them asked him to perform an impossible task and drove him crazy when they thought he was a genie. And then when she randomly compliments the guy on his boots he bought in town, I wonder if she's gonna turn on him. Which would be stupid forced drama because they're the only friends they have, and they're stronger as a team. So it'd be sad if one of them ran away with the Meeseeks box. She asks Meeseeks to give her a pair of boots just like those. She laughs as he tries to steal the boots, but he doesn't just humor them both and let them have his boots, even after everything that he saw that the Meeseeks was capable of. So when the idiot kicks it into the fire, the two of them show they actually have compassion. And then the Meeseeks jumps out of the fire and kills him. We cut to the horrified girl being told at a bar that this is her last pint. She seems to wish that one of them would sit with her and accuses them of thinking they're better than her, as one of the guys holding beers seems to resemble Rick. She asks the Meeseek while drunk to get her a kingdom of her own because she's always wondered what legacy she'd leave behind, and always wanted to be a queen. So she started stealing stuff to become rich and powerful. At least that was explained. The Meeseeks realistically seems worried, and stutters while asking someone to swear fealty to Crinius. The stutter makes him more relatable. When he says no, he gets hit, and the Meeseeks starts a bar fight. All because these people were too stupid to simply lie. And because of what species Crinius is, when a knight shows up, he kills her. This naturally upsets Meeseeks because now he can't possibly fulfill his task, and the knights tell the people at the bar that they're all under arrest. To be fair, how are any of these tough guys supposed to think they couldn't take this scrawny blue guy? They don't seem polite enough to lie. But this is another thing that could have easily been avoided. Then when the Meeseeks wakes up, someone charismatic assumes that Crinius cursed him to look the way he does. I guess he doesn't explain himself to him because he thinks he would be over his head. The knight refuses to believe the Meeseeks started the bar fight because he's so scrawny. And the guy says they must all do their part to stop the spread of evil. Meeseeks asks if he has somewhere to go, and he says he needs EXP. I guess he plans on conquering a kingdom anyways, and giving Crinius a legacy, even after she died as a mere thief. He'd have better luck going to Rick and getting him to make a clone Crinius so that she could give the original one a legacy. But he has no way to get to Rick. Meeseeks is taken to a gray guy and agrees that he's a warrior with spellcasting power. and the guy says that he believes in his chest beats the heart of a true adventurer. So he wants to get him outfitted with gear. A great guy says that according to a farmer, the cattle were pulled in here. The Meeseeks easily defeats the giant spiders and says he's getting stronger, and for some reason, the people here don't recognize the terms XP and stat boosts, despite living in a D&D world. Meeseeks then calls this guy Jerry, even though he never met Jerry before. So the story really does think it's always the same Mr. Meeseeks. But how's that possible when you can summon multiple of them at once? After a grisly page of the Meeseeks fighting, which would have been not so bad if the gore was a different color, the guy tells Meeseeks that this isn't working because the Meeseeks is constantly hurling himself into battle without concern for his allies. And that combined with his lack of communication and deplorable hygiene is too much. The guy says they're meant to be warriors of light. I never noticed that. If they're already planning on killing a bunch of monsters, then they were gonna be miscreants on a murder spree anyways. That's all I see them doing. The Meeseeks tells this guy that he's weak and he's min-maxing up. How would he know the term RP if this guy doesn't? And this is the only world he's ever known. They really do have access to all knowledge. And somehow there's no sorcery involved. Thankfully, Meeseeks doesn't actually kill them, and instead wanders away, even though he wants XP. He looks at posters, and then summons a bunch of Meeseeks and says they need XP. What's with this obsession with XP when all he was asked to do was get a girl in charge of a kingdom? Meeseeks are invincible monsters. He's only doing this to take advantage of it being Dungeons and Dragons. But really, it's just padding. He'd be at max from the start. He doesn't even specify how much XP the Meeseeks need before they can vanish. Aren't they gonna grow old and demented? Somehow, a Meeseeks fell in battle against that dragon, and he was a bard. They're invincible. That doesn't explain it. I mean, I had to resist the urge to laugh because he was a bard, so it was a joke at how bards can be bad. Now they have enough money to do what they have to do. So it was about money this whole time. And then we see a guard complain that his job is too boring and he'd rather be fighting in a war. He's called an idiot. After he's humanized, he gets killed by an arrow, and I actually giggled at the fact that the army of Meeseeks were all shouting, "Look at me!" and the text was larger than usual. And the "and me" was repeated a lot, because it was so silly. The Meeseeks easily scale the walls with ropes, and narration speaks formally about the giant amount of Meeseeks invading the town, and calls it the Blue Siege. Of course, the king surrenders. And the Meeseeks names the kingdom of Crinius. Other than them needing ropes, which they could have stolen, I don't see why they needed money from monsters to get to this point. They're still invincible. Then all of the Meeseeks disappear, which is confusing because literally all they were told to do is give their king Meeseeks some XP. Only one of them would disappear from that. And the Meeseeks box ends up being left with a shocked king. And at this point, Rick shows up through a portal, which shocks everyone enough that they don't feel like stopping him from taking it. That and they're probably too scared to after what happened to them. Rick smiles and compliments their horse, and somehow it comes to him just because he said, "Come here," and he rides into the portal on it, merely telling them not to touch his stuff. I'm pleasantly surprised they didn't kill them. It's weird that they all disappeared because the kingdom was named Crinius instead of it having to take longer first. Wouldn't they have to make sure Crinius is remembered in the history books first? The king could easily change the name of the kingdom back. This story was about a girl and guy finding a Meeseeks box in the woods that of course Rick left behind, for some reason. And after they use it to get a lot of loot, rather than retiring and not stealing anymore, the girl accidentally gets her friend killed by asking the Meeseeks to steal his boots as a joke, and causing him to stupidly resist and kick him into the fire. So she drinks at a bar, eventually gets killed just for her species after telling a Meeseeks to give her a kingdom. So he kills a lot of monsters, getting kicked out of a group because of his throwing himself into danger without regard for his allies. And eventually, after summoning an army and beating a dragon, after it turns out they were getting money that they shouldn't have needed, they all invade a castle and name a kingdom after that girl. That alone causes them to vanish, even though they didn't tell anyone about Crinius. I expected them to take over a kingdom, but it was a plot twist that they did it for someone after they died and still vanished anyways. It's also nice of Rick to not even hurt anyone for having his Meeseeks box. I just wish I knew why he came to that D&D dimension in the first place, because it makes the whole story seem arbitrary otherwise. You'd think he wouldn't just forget he left a box like that somewhere.